Hello, Irshad. How you feeling today?
I'm good, man. How are you?
You don't ask the interviewer questions.
I'm good.
Name?
My name's Irshad.
Your name's Irshad.
Hi Ali, how are you?
I'm good. Yourself, bro?
You're not meant to ask questions when you're in an interview. What's your name, Ali? Introduce yourself.
What's my name, Ali?
Introduce yourself, mate.
My name's Ali Outside.
Oh yeah, let's go. Let's turn it up. Okay. Well, I'm Razak. I'm 1/3 of the SAS podcast. Yeah. What else do you want me to say about myself? To be honest,
I took part in starting a podcast purely because I thought it's something I could keep as, I guess you call it a routine. You know, get a couple of friends together, from having our daily chats, which could go from being some sort of humor to some sort of seriousness. I thought it would be good to have it on camera.
Why did I take part in starting I took part in starting a podcast because I wanted to have a project that, kept me productive, kept me thinking, kept my, creative part of my brain flowing, just instead of...
Nothing's flowing with him. Continue, it's alright. Sorry to...
just instead of like waking up, going to work, going to the gym and going to bed, I wanted to have something else that kept my mind occupied and, really helped me accountable, kept me productive and efficient.
okay. Honestly, I feel as if a podcast is kind of like a gateway for people to get to know who you are. And I feel as if ever since I've grown up, I've just always wanted to express myself to the world. And I just think that's just who I am.
Far out. That was a good answer as well.
Oh, yuck, fam.
Imagine that midway on an actual podcast like a famous person.
So as I was saying, ever since I've been a kid, that's always what I wanted to do, express myself. And I feel as if a podcast, is one of the gateways to doing that. So, yeah.
At the moment, I think one lesson is issues with the mic. I need to know my distance. That's purely every single episode I come in. I wouldn't say I hate the way I sound, but I figured, there's some... Okay, one lesson could be always have something, like being able to kind of filter yourself and not really mention some stuff that could be inappropriate to the audience. I feel like at that moment where you have a camera in front of you and you're not heated, but you can consider yourself, I guess, just yarning, you could call it, about just different things. You don't really think about what you could say that could be offensive.
So,
I've been more aware. I'm more aware about what I should say and not say.
Yeah. You need to be taking into account how other people's feelings might be affected.
Yeah, it could be offensive of what I should say, and that's something that I've taken into account.
I'd like for this podcast to really get people to be in the same state of mind that I was in when I decided to start a podcast, just learning, the love of learning new stuff, really, keeping yourself, keeping your mind on its toes, really. No one should ever just be content with not learning, not improving, not having anything extra that you're achieving, not doing anything good for others, I really want this podcast to teach people stuff, teach people new skills, and above all that, teach people to want to learn new skills.
Have you seen the impact take place yet?
I've seen it kind of start, not really the way I want it, as in hasn't achieved its full potential, but I've seen, people, I've heard people tell me they like seeing, someone actually start something up for themselves, get something done, and just the fact that people see that and can appreciate what's actually going on is the first step to them actually taking a step like that for themselves.
I want one day, when someone wants to feel inspired, or if someone wants to know about Razak Kalea, who he is, if someone wants to know about Irshad, if someone wants to know about Ali, if someone wants to know about whoever, they come onto the SAS podcast learn about us, learn about our story, learn about numerous stories from guests to us, to people around us, to the world news, and just be inspired by our podcast. One day someone would wake up and say, I just watched such podcast and now I want to start a business. I just watched such podcast and now I want to start a YouTube channel. I just watched such podcast and now I want to become a rapper, an actor, a footy player. I want to do something. Like, I want people to watch our podcast and, want to be active from it. So, yeah.
What is the biggest challenge you're facing right now?
Being able to come up with ideas and structuring the episodes and come up with, you could call it interesting topics to talk about. You absolutely have to be conscious of the way that the things you say can affect other people. And that's often really hard to do because, if we absolutely knew how something we would say would affect someone else, then that wouldn't be a problem at all, just avoid saying stuff like that. But we don't always know how someone's going to react to something we say, which means that we have to take extra precaution. Because at the end of the day, some people might think, oh, it's just words, why would that hurt anyone? But really, say you hear something that triggers something emotionally, it reminds you of a certain experience you've had, something that's not too pleasant for yourself, that can really hurt people. And often that kind of emotional trauma can lead to things that are even worse and more drastic.
Lessons learned from the podcast so far.
It's definitely brushed up on some lost editing skills. I'll tell you that much.
So, to clarify, you are the editor, is that correct?
I am the master of post-production. See, I know how to put it.
I could say this is something that I'm happy to start with. However, it won't be upgraded anytime soon, no. But in the future, yes, we could come up with a proper setup, proper studio, closed room without any, I guess you could say, noises from the outside.
This actual space, this set, obviously, like if we have 1 million subscribers, then I hope we're not at this same place. I'm not going to say what place this is, but yeah.
In the last episode, you were saying you have low points every single day. With low
Yeah.
points, there's challenges. So, what's your challenge right now?
Right now, my biggest challenge might not even be my biggest, but just what's on my mind right now. Making spirituality a bigger part of my life.
What I'll do with $10,000, probably donate it to charity. A charity in mind, I'd say MATW. I think looking up to Ali Bana as an inspiration from what he had to what he finished off with, I think it's worthy of donating to a charity like that, helping the Muslims around the world. Okay,
so I want to invest in a better computer so we could edit better and make better content and make content more, rapidly, And I'd also want to invest in maybe in promotion. By area of interest, can you be more specific?
Anything somewhat a passion that you'd want to share to the audience?
Not really. I'd want to just interview a lot of interesting people. We've already interviewed 2 interesting people, but I want to, hopefully span into the celebrity space. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Cars. I'd like to talk more about cars. I wouldn't say educate people about cars, but I think having a conversation about cars, because it's a field that interests me, I think I'll talk a lot about. I wouldn't consider myself a car expert, but yes, I'll talk about cars. And I think that's something I can share.
Is it just because you like cars that you think it'd be a good idea to talk about them?
Being passionate about it, I feel like I would have a lot to say. So I feel like that's something people could be tuning in for.
Do you think it'd be beneficial to others though?
Not necessarily.
You'd enjoy?
Not necessarily. Something I enjoy.
Something you enjoy. Even though it's something you just enjoy talking about, doesn't necessarily mean it's pointless to talk about though, right?
Of course. Not at all.
It's always good to learn stuff.
Yeah, everyone has a passion they like, and sharing it could educate someone else.
Spark that passion
to someone else. Or anyone that does have the same passion would love to hear it as well from someone else.
Yes. And that would be how to be more productive. And that goes into all aspects of life, you know, whether you're someone studying, whether you're someone running a project for yourself, you know, something you want to get accomplished, whether you're, you know, trying to get fitter, you know, you want to have a more efficient workout program, something like that. Just in any aspect of life, how to be more productive, because at the end of the day, the more productive we are, the more we get out of our lives. And so that's actually something that we'll be looking at starting up in the next week.
Do you feel like you're getting closer to it, or do you feel like you're somewhere where you haven't really made a move yet, but you feel you don't, like, you know you've made a move? Sorry, you don't know you've made a move, but you really have. Do you feel like you got that?
I'm making moves in silence, bro.
Yeah?
No, I'm kidding. What are you saying?
So, I mean, like, do you feel like you haven't really made a move closer to where you want when it comes to spirituality, but you really have? Like, in other words, do you feel content with your progress right now? Getting closer to your spirituality, making it part of your life?
I don't think any of us should ever feel content with that, because it's something that I don't believe any of us can perfect. So for me to feel content with something that I know can be improved, just wouldn't make sense. What I can feel content with, though, is my efforts to actually get closer to achieving that. So not even just feeling content with what I'm doing towards it, because that even in itself can be improved. I can always be doing more to get closer towards it. But just the attitude of, you know, the fact that is my main priority, and I'd like to try my best to put that above everything else. That's what I feel content with.
Does it bother you that your beard is patchy?
It isn't patchy.
Does it bother you that you're lying to the audience?
I'm not. Camera's angle right here. Is it patchy, guys?
Yeah.
Does it bother you that Raz's beard is patchy?
Razak doesn't have a beard.
Does it bother you that Razak's beard is patchy?
I don't have a beard and it's not patchy. Does it bother you that Irshad's beard is patchy? Is it patchy? Is it patchy? Look at it. That is not a beard.
Like you'll face a writer's block with upcoming episodes.
Yes, definitely. I feel like there'll be a time period where we really need to sit down, all three hosts, and really talk about what we can do that's
like
different.
Face the writer's block this week, bro.
Do I ever feel like I've faced a writer's block? I mean, it's always a possibility. But the thing with a writer's block is it's more so like when you sit down, you know, you try to figure something out, you try to come up with ideas, and just nothing's flowing. But the way I come up with ideas for this project specifically is just when I'm going through my day-to-day life and something random just pops up, or, you know, I have an experience where I'm like, oh, this is an interesting lesson, I think more people should know this. You know, I just open up my phone, open up my notes app, and just write it down. And I honestly think that's something everyone else should be doing. Like, whenever you come across an important lesson, write it down. You know, you don't want to be forgetting these things. Like, how much do people pay for education every year? But yeah, if people are paying like crazy amounts for education every year, but we're forgetting about the education that we come into contact with every single day, then that's honestly such a big waste. If we're paying all that money for education, for private education, or whatever it may be, but the lessons we learn in our day-to-day lives we're just forgetting and moving past, honestly, that's such a big waste, and we need to appreciate that a lot more.
A writer's block with the podcast. You're just talking, fam. You're speaking your mind. I'm sure you've got a million things on your mind. How can you have a writer's block with a podcast? like maybe you might have an ideas block, the different ideas to spice it up. You might have an ideas block when it comes to that, but I feel as if you can't, because there's so many interesting people around us that we just bring on, talk, and there's so many interesting things that's going on in the world right now. Like, look at the news. What's going on? Like, I don't know, the royal family, that business and stuff. Really, you know, like we all have our different ideas. You know, when I come onto the podcast, I just speak my mind and speak what's on my mind. I say things, you know, like sometimes these things may be a bit absurd, but yeah, I can't really block what's already in my mind. I don't have to come up with anything, just speak, fam. So.
Look, definitely, I feel like my role here in the podcast would become definitely more complex, you could call. Look, at the moment, being the one that's out here trying to create content, go out on the social media pages, post, get ideas with descriptions, the whole catchy descriptions, everything like that would definitely become more complex. One, being able to, you know, once we've expanded this, once we become, I guess, more ideas when it comes to what we want to post, it's going to become more complex considering the fact that I'm controlling the posts. What goes out on the Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Spotify, whatever it could be, whether it's descriptions, whether it's what we want to post, the editing, not the editing necessarily, but the post editing. So definitely down the track, it will become more complex. And I think that's the same with any other thing, any other project you want to run. The more expansion you have, the more traction you gain, it would become more complex as a role.
I feel like my main role in the podcast is just figuring out what we're going to be talking about, you know, bringing in who we're going to have as a guest, what we're going to be talking about, you know, creative side of things. So I think with more viewers, gaining more traction, the stuff that I put out, the ideas we have is just going to be increasingly sensitive, I guess. But the other side of that is that no matter how big we get, or no matter how small we are to start off with, whatever position I'd want this podcast creatively to be in when we've got 1 million followers, 1 million subscribers or whatever, if that ever happens, is the same place that I should be aiming to put it in right now, creatively.
What is your role when it comes to the podcast? I think you've already answered that.
I've already said I'm the editor.
Yeah.
Apparently I'm the comic relief, which could be true. Yeah, okay, yeah, it is true. Yeah, obviously, you know, my role over the years, if this podcast is around for years, will obviously change. I'm going to change as a human. Irshad's going to change. Ali's going to change. So our roles are going to change. They're going to intertwine. Hopefully they don't clash, but they're going to change.
I couldn't necessarily say the other two hosts or myself was perfect. So it's really, I would call it a risk, but something going out, like we're out here trying. So I won't say they're the perfect fit, but definitely they can improve on being there, if that makes sense. Being behind a camera, being behind a mic where you can speak and openly, freely say something, you know, share your voice. But yeah, I never knew they were perfect at the start, but yeah, it's just a matter of what you want for the podcast and what I want for the podcast, and that's what really fits the category of being a perfect being a perfect host.
Because no one can be the perfect fit. We're all here to learn.
Are you the perfect fit for a podcast like this?
No.
I feel as if we're all different and there's no such thing as a perfect fit. So I feel as if our differences and whatever, there's no such thing as a perfect fit. Like, what is a perfect fit? Like, all the guests get along and everything's all happy-go-lucky. Like, yeah, we get along, but, like, we all have different ideas, different visions, different things, different that, you know, so, yeah.
Okay, young people like us, we probably don't have much to say as opposed to someone that's like 40 years old, whether it's experiences, whether it's what they've gone through, whether it's just accomplishments in their life. However, I feel like we have some sort of inspiration. We can kind of inspire people out there, whether it's anyone older than us or younger than us. So the impact could be just inspiring young kids or anyone older than us. Not to just go out there and have a laugh, but anything that we can share with our guests or ourselves.
Cool. Have you seen this impact take place yet?
Not yet, because it's just the beginning.
Well, with my voice, with my podcast, you know, I just want, as I said before, one day people to just turn to us for inspiration. So someone could I want someone to see me as Razak or Razak, whatever. See me as Razzie or Razak or Raz. And then, you know, I want them to come onto my podcast and see another side of me. Pause. Okay. I want them to come onto the podcast and see another side of all of us and see who we are and see all these type of people. Irshad, can you stop with the whole...
One thing I've learned is, especially in the first episode with Chebos, I've learned that even at someone at such a young age, very close in age with us, 18, 19, 20, 20-year-old, is we're not so limited in being able to kind of do amazing things like he did. Whether it's starting a successful business, whether it's going out there, being TikTok famous, if that's something you want to accomplish, just anything that kind of gets you out of the comfort zone. Seeing it in person, someone there, having the pleasure to have him as a guest and kind of learning off him and what he had to say was actually something more important than anything, especially if you want to do really well for yourself. So one thing I've learned is really looking up to people who are very close in age and seeing that it is possible to go out there and do what he did, or in whatever way you want to do it.
You know, I learned that from the podcast itself. I learned that, you know, it's tough. It's not easy. Like, people may think, yeah, okay, just going in front of a... No, it's just like people might think, oh, you're just talking in front of a mic and you're just speaking into a camera. But yeah, it's that. But it's also, there's so many other things. There's so many things we are yet to learn about speaking and presenting, you know, and there's so many things that I've learned from these 3 episodes about editing, about speaking, about how we should structure episodes, about how we shouldn't interrupt one another and stuff like that. So I just have to look at Irshad for that. But yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
That's it, yeah?
That's all we've got time.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you, Ali, for coming in today. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having you today, Raz. It was a pleasure.